Years earlier, protagonist secretly paid off her son's $180,000 mortgage as an interest-free loan to save his marriage from foreclosure, a debt only she and a notarized promissory note can prove exists. And now, at his second wedding, her daughter-in-law demands she disappear from the family without knowing that note controls the house they are standing in. My name is Amelia, and I was 24 the year I signed my name on a document that would decide, decades later, who got to keep a roof over their head. I didn't know that then. I only knew my son Daniel was drowning, and I was the kind of person who wrote checks quietly instead of asking questions loudly. That's who I've always been. The woman who fixes things and says nothing about it. 26 years later, I stood in a rented banquet hall smelling of gardenias and warm candle wax, watching my son marry a woman named Whitney for the second time, his first marriage having ended in the very house I paid for. Whitney found me by the gift table, smiling the practiced smile of someone who had rehearsed a speech. "The best wedding gift," she said, loud enough for 3 bridesmaids to hear, "would be you finally leaving this family alone." I smoothed the tablecloth flat under my palm, the way I always do when my hands need somewhere calm to go. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply reached into my purse for the folder I brought, not for the wedding, but for a meeting I'd scheduled for Monday morning. She had no idea what was in it. My name is Amelia, and for 31 years I worked as a CPA, first at a regional firm auditing small businesses, later running my own practice out of a converted garage with a space heater that never quite worked. People assume accountants are cautious, forgettable people. They're right about the forgettable part. That's what makes us dangerous. I don't raise my voice. I never have. When my ex-husband left in 1998, I didn't scream. I recalculated our joint assets and filed the paperwork myself. When a client tried to hide income from the IRS, I didn't confront him. I sent a letter, certified mail, and let the numbers do the confronting. My one habit, the thing my children used to tease me about, is smoothing paper flat with the side of my hand. Receipts, contracts, napkins, anything with a crease. It's how I think. It's how I stayed sane. By the time Whitney told me to leave the family, I had already spent 2 years quietly reviewing every financial document tied to my son's house. She thought she was speaking to a mother-in-law. She was actually speaking to the only person alive who held the deed's true history. Cliffhanger line. She was actually speaking to the only person alive who held the deed's true history. I had been the reliable one since I was 9 years old, when my mother handed me the grocery envelope and told me to make $40 last week because my father's disability check was late again. I remember the smell of the envelope, pencil shavings, and something like old coffee, because I checked it so many times my fingers wore the paper soft. That was the beginning of a pattern I never broke. Be useful. Be quiet. Don't ask for credit. When Daniel called me in 2019, whispering that he and his first wife were 3 months behind on the mortgage, I didn't hesitate. I liquidated a CD, took a loan against my own home equity, and wired him $180,000, enough to clear the arrears and refinance clean. I asked for one thing, a promissory note, notarized, filed quietly with my attorney, not because I distrusted my son, because I had spent 30 years watching what happens to women who lend money on love instead of paper. My flaw, if I'm honest, is that I let people believe generosity meant I had no boundaries. I let my silence be mistaken for permission. I never told Daniel's second wife any of this. I assumed, foolishly, that some things simply didn't need saying out loud. I didn't find out through an argument. I found out through a shared cloud folder Daniel forgot I still had access to, a leftover permission from when I did his taxes. It was day 61 before the wedding when I opened it, looking for a W-2 he needed. Instead, I found a draft letter, dated 3 weeks earlier, addressed to a real estate attorney. Whitney's name was on it, not Daniel's. It requested a quiet claim to sole ownership of the house once Amelia's involvement is formally ended, citing an outdated 2019 refinance document that conveniently made no mention of my note. The letter smelled faintly of nothing at all, just a cold, sterile hum of a laptop screen at 11:40 p.m., the kind of light that makes everything look like evidence. I read it twice. I did not call Daniel. I did not confront Whitney. I closed the laptop, smoothed my hand flat across the closed lid the way I smooth paper, and sat in the dark kitchen for exactly 4 minutes by the microwave clock. Then I opened my filing cabinet and found the original note, the one with my attorney's raised notary seal still crisp under my thumb. They had forgotten paper doesn't disappear just because people stop mentioning it. Cliffhanger line. They had forgotten paper doesn't disappear just because people stop mentioning it. For the next 47 days, I built my case the way I'd built every audit of my career. Quietly, alone, at my kitchen table at 6 a.m. before anyone else was awake. First, the promissory note itself, $180,000, dated June 4, 2019, notarized by Linda Ferris, recorded with my attorney under file number 2019-0447. Second, the wire transfer record from my credit union, showing the funds moving directly to the mortgage servicer, not to Daniel personally, meaning it could never be argued as a gift folded into shared marital assets. Third, the refinance document Whitney's letter relied on. I found the county recording, and it explicitly listed existing lien holder obligations to be satisfied separately, language her attorney had apparently never read past the first page. I built a spreadsheet with 11 tabs. Payment history, interest accrual at 0%, which I'd waived for Daniel but never waived on paper as forgiven. Property tax contributions I'd also quietly covered, another $14,200 over 4 years. The kitchen smelled like burnt coffee most mornings, because I kept forgetting the pot was on while I cross-referenced dates. I found one error in my own math. I'd misdated a 2021 payment by 2 weeks. I corrected it immediately. Sloppiness, even in my favor, wasn't something I could allow myself. Looking back, there were 3 signs I'd chosen not to see. The first was 18 months earlier, when Whitney asked, almost casually, whether the house was technically Daniel's now, a question I answered honestly but didn't examine. The second was day 12 before the wedding, when Daniel mentioned Whitney wanted to simplify things financially before they merged households fully. I remember thinking Simplify was doing a lot of quiet work in that sentence. The third was the smell of her perfume, something sharp and citrus, almost aggressive. Every time she hugged me a beat too long at family dinners, the kind of embrace that measures you rather than welcomes you. If you've ever ignored a pattern because confronting it felt exhausting, stay with me, because I did exactly that, and it cost me 2 years I could have spent protecting myself sooner instead of protecting everyone else. I want to be honest about something else. 2. Subscribe if you want to see how far people will go when they think paperwork is just a formality. It rarely is, because 3 days after I found that letter, Whitney filed something with the county, and that changed everything. The wedding reception smelled like champagne gone slightly warm and the particular staleness of a hotel ballroom air conditioner working too hard. I wore navy, not black. I didn't come to mourn anything. Whitney found me near the gift table again, this time with her mother beside her, and repeated louder what she'd said quietly before. I think it's time you let this family move forward without you. I didn't raise my voice. I opened the folder I'd been carrying since Chapter 1 and placed 3 documents on the linen tablecloth. The promissory note, the wire records, and the county filing rejection notice, dated that morning, day 0, because her attorney's quiet claim had been denied for failing to disclose an existing lien. You filed against a property with an $180,000 encumbrance you didn't know existed, I said, my voice even. The county caught it. I didn't have to say a word. Whitney's voice rose first, sharp and cracking, demanding to know who gave me the paperwork. Her mother's voice rose next, defending her. Daniel's aunt, standing near the cake table, said the only sentence that mattered. Whitney, she's been paying your mortgage since 2019. Ask her why you never knew that. The room went silent except for the air conditioner, still humming, indifferent to all of it. Whitney never apologized. Not that night. Not in the 93 days since. Daniel called me twice, once to ask why I hadn't told him about the letter sooner, and once, quieter, to say he was sorry he hadn't asked more questions of his own wife before the wedding. The marriage didn't end. I want to be clear about that, because this isn't a story where everything resolves into justice. Daniel and Whitney are still married, but the house is legally protected under the note, refinanced properly this time. With my name formally acknowledged as lien holder until the balance is repaid, $6,200 has come in so far, in slow, careful installments. Whitney doesn't speak to me at family gatherings anymore. She doesn't need to. I don't require an apology to feel at peace. I only require the truth to exist somewhere official, where it couldn't be quietly rewritten. I still smooth papers flat out of habit, even documents that don't need it, even napkins at restaurants. Daniel noticed once and asked if I was nervous. I told him no. I was just making sure nothing had a hidden fold I'd missed. Some relationships don't end with a scene. They end with silence at holiday dinners, and you learn to sit comfortably inside that silence anyway. I still have the folder. It sits in the same office where, at 24, I once signed papers that made this family's finances mine to protect. I kept the folder, not out of bitterness, but because a good accountant never destroys her records, even the ones that stop mattering to everyone but her. These days I have dinner on Thursdays with Priya, of all people, Bridget's former maid of honor, who called me 2 months after the wedding just to ask how I was doing, and kept calling. I have my neighbor, Dolores, who waters my plants and argues with me about crossword clues. I have 3 former clients who became something closer to sisters than colleagues ever should. Chosen family, it turns out, doesn't come with a joint account or a maiden name on a vendor filing. It just shows up consistently without being asked to. I still smooth pages flat with my palm before I read them. Some habits outlive the reasons we started them, and I've made my peace with that one. If someone in your life has gone quiet the way I did for 31 years, check on them today, not next week. And if this story meant something to you, subscribe, so the next quiet woman story finds you too.